Hello, I hope you're having a fantastic holiday season. Today we're going to be taking a look at the best of RGB fans that I've tested in 2024. Actually, it's going to be a lifetime of this testing, but the best that we've seen up till this point. So let's get right into it. First, I'm still working on acquiring the test system to be able to generate thermal data. Unfortunately, I haven't reached that point yet in this channel. So if you like what I'm doing and would like to see it grow, think about joining me as a Patreon, YouTube member, or just hitting that subscribe button or sending me a super. All that does really go in a long way in helping make this channel a little bit more sustainable so that I can hopefully build or buy a test system sooner than later to get you more accurate thermal data, so I'm not restricted to just air speeds going through coolers, which does have certain limiting factors, let's say. Anyways, let's get back to the video. So the very best here, before I get into that, the key over here. So I have two noise normalized results, and they're normalized for my ambient room noise, so they're equalized, subtracting out the room noise. So we have the 10.5 decibel mark and the 18 decibel mark. And the very best of the A-RGB fans is not really an A-RGB fan, it's the P28. You have to buy an extension kit to slap onto the side of the fan to make it A-RGB. So it's not really an A-RGB fan. So let's move to the next one and see how that ranks. Well, we have the Loop FTB 140. Regardless of what you think of brands or whatnot, I'm just here to tell you about how they rank from fans I've tested. So it ranked really very well. Then we have the Mobius 120p A-RGB, Unifan SL140 TLK12, Unifan AL140 version 2, and I tested two different models of it, I do believe, P12 A-RGB and the TLS12W, and you can see the other models. If you're wondering why some of these fans have the little bracket at the end, and those fans were tested in my new house, so just in case there was some variation with the way the room sounds generate around the room, I put a bracket behind it saying that it was tested in a new environment, just for my own precautions' sake. Now, this was a viewer suggestion to have normalized testing at various RPMs. So I have a test at a couple. Over here on the right side, we have how they're ranked. So a weighing factor for how important each aspect of it is. And the very best in this test was the Loop FTP 140, followed by the M25 140, the Unifan AL140 version 2, Unifan P28, BR Digital Z 120/25 pastel, and so on and so forth. Then we have the same thing, but this time at 1,500 RPM, and we can see the weighing factor once again. Things have shaken up a little bit. The Unifan AL140 version 2 is now best, followed by the Loop FTP 140, P28, Unifan SL140 reverse blade, M25 140, and a couple of the SWA fans in there as well, moving things up to 2,500 RPM. And we now have the Loop FTP 140, Unifan P28, the SWA fans, Unifan SL and ALs, and Air Penetrator is in there with its new weighing factor. You'll notice some fans are dropping out, and that is because they don't have that same maximum RPM. Now at the rip roaring 2,500 RPM, there are very few fans that have RGB that also achieve this level of performance. So we are restricted to the P28 Lightwings 120 high performance version, Bionics P120 A-RGB, Masterfan SF120p A-RGB, and they have the noise levels listed as well. Now at the rip-roaring 100% PW fan signal, this is just let the fans run at maximum, and wherever they rank is wherever they rank compared to one another. So there could be instances where like the SWAFan EX14 at 2000 RPM outperforms 2500-ish RPM fans. It's just how it works sometimes. The weighing factor also over here on the right side. So we got the P28 in first place, followed by the Loop FTP 140, the Mobius 120p A-RGB, Swafan EX A-RGB, Unifan AL140, the X12F A-RGB reverse blade, Swafan EX114 reverse blade, Light Wings 120, so on and so forth down the line. Now over here on the right side, we have how they ranked. So the very best is at the bottom, the very worst is at the top. It's not really the very worst, but it's ranked 27th, so it's the worst that I decided to display here. And I took a sample selection of the fans that's in there. So most of these fans don't have very extreme harmonics in them, but like a fan that's in first, it's going to sit towards the top. A fan that's ranked 27th, it's going to sit towards the bottom. Stuff that's in the middle is going to sit in the middle. And fans that sit right next to each other are basically, the lines are going to be almost next to each other as you're taking a look at these graphs. Just as a general disclaimer, this would be a whole mess if I displayed every single fan on it at once. So you can see the P28 is sitting towards the top, with the next best being the Loop FTP 140. And the worst that I displayed on here could be considered the P14 A-RGB or the X12F A-RGB. And at certain points, it's the Mobius 140p. So you can see how they generally rank. So you just want, all things being equal, you want to try to pick a fan as close into the middle of the grouping as possible, because that's going to guarantee a more top-rated fan. But even the bottom-most ones here are significantly better than, well, other fans on the market. Same data set, but this time it's Sohn. I have a whole video talking about Sohn versus decibels, where it in a nutshell means that Sohn turns a logarithmic scale, where every 10 decibels is a doubling noise volume, into a linear scale. So it stretches out the noise levels as they get, well, louder. So it really pushes these lines off to the right side here. So fans that clump together really nicely at these lower noise levels, you could call them almost near an equivalent, because there isn't actually as much variation there as well as the data could make it seem like there is. Now we're on to the case simulation test. And the case simulation test, if you haven't watched any of my videos, I take it at 4 key measurement locations that generally represent 4 types of scenarios that you'll come across in computer cases. So the 6-inch mark, the first one, is what I call a short throw distance. So a mini ITX computer case, or a where you put the fans at the bottom of your CUM case and you're blowing them up towards your GPU, the 6-inch mark is very representative of that. Then you have the 9-inch mark. The 9-inch mark is a compact tower. Think a case that can hold a standard ATX motherboard, but really no extra room in front of it. So the GPU is going to be very size limited. The motherboard or the case is very size limited, but you'd have a very compact build. Then we have the 11-inch mark. This would be your standard mid-tower cases. It would be able to hold, generally speaking, a 360 AIO inside that size. And then at the 14.5-inch mark, you'd be looking at something that can hold 340 millimeter class fans. So what's that, a 420 Radiator, along those lines. So depending on what size computer case you plan on using is the data point you want to focus most in on. So like for me, I have the Fractal Design Torrent, so I'm going to be looking at the 14.5-inch mark. But if you're going to be using the Fractal North, let's say that's a standard mid-tower. So you'd be taking a look at that data point, just as an example, because I actually happen to be looking around at computer cases currently in this holiday season myself. So the very best of the best here is the Air Penetrator 180i A-RGB. And for kicks and giggles, I showed 180 millimeter class fans on this graph. They have a lot more staying power than standard 120s or 140s. So the bigger the fan, the better it is at blowing a volume through a computer case without obviously needing as many of them. And they generally do better than more smaller fans. Just disclaimer aside. So the best in bigger cases that isn't 180 millimeters is actually the Mobius 140p from these A-RGB fans. If what you care about are mid towers, well then in here you're going to be taking a look at the TLS12 and the Loop FTP 140, followed by, what's this? The TLS12S, just a little bit below it, and then these other rankings, where the quote worst, but still actually kind of okay fan, is the Unifan AL140, I do believe, the version 2. And depending on if you're looking at the biggest computer cases, you're going to be changing up for that. Or if you just want to stuck your fans in the bottom of your computer case and blow them up towards your GPU and not bother with any other fans in the computer case, you'd be looking at this data point. Now we're taking a look at that noise normalized value, but this time at that noise normalized 18 decibel mark. And you can see some fans changed up in position, where we still have the 180i sitting at the very tippity tip. But now we have the Loop FTP 140 sitting a little bit higher. What's this blue one? The Unifan P28. And the diamond or triangle one was that the EK Loop 120, or is it something else? I think it's the Loop FTP 120. But you can see how different fans, generally are stacking up against each other and in the grouping. So as long as you're sticking near this main body group, you're picking a top tier type fan. Now we're on to the fixed RPM levels. So first is that 800 RPM, and the two data points shown are the 6 and the 11, because I figure most people are going to be in mid towers, and a lot of newer cases have fan positioning that allows them to blow up towards your GPU. So that's why I just decided to display those two data points for simplicity's sake. So the air penetrator is the best. It's the biggest fan. Let's move on to more regularly sized fans though. The Loop FTP 140 is ranked really well, followed by the TLS12W, the M25, and the Mobius 140p, and you can see how other fans rank in there as well. Bumping things up to 1500 RPM, the Loop FTP 140 is still right there, but now the TLS12W has moved up in position, the Mobius 140p, M25 140, and so on and so forth, and you can see how different fans are generally starting to rank up. Moving things up to now 2000 RPM, that is quite a high RPM. That's generally what I like to see as high RPM fans, is that 2000 RPM mark. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Loop FTP 140, Mobius 140p, Air Penetrator, 120 SK, A-RGB, Light Wings 140, High Speed Edition, EK Loop 120, TLG K12. I'm kind of jumping through them. Some of the last ones would be like the Masterfan SF 120p A-RGB. And then 2500 RPM, not a lot of options, but if you need a case fan that spins this fast, P28 Bionics P12 A-RGB, Light Wings 120. Apparently I listed that one twice. Those are really your only options at this level. Now, utilizing the 9-inch mark, airspeed versus noise rating, this time using decibels. And we have the ranking over here on the chart to the side. I did not include the air penetrator on this one. So we're just going to be left with the best one being the Loop FTP 140. But if you're looking at really a lot quieter fans, like super duper duper quiet, the TLS12W would be the top pick for sitting at the quietest if you don't need huge amounts of airflow for your case. So it's a more ordinary type build, or a airflow focused case. You're not having to brute force your way through things. Also in here as a well-ranking fan would be the Mobius 140p. The sort of worse fans on here would be like the Air Penetrator 120 SK A-RGB. It's just sitting a little bit on the lower side. It's really not that bad, but it's at the bottom end of this. And where does it rank on here? The loop. Oh, it's ranked 13th. So it's still a quite good fan. But you can see how they tend to drop away a little bit more. And this triangle one being the Masterfan SF120M A-RGB, which should be sitting in a very similar position. 22nd. So there isn't that much difference between a 22nd and a 13 ranked fan. So it is up to you to decide what is good enough. Same data, just taking a look at it in SON so you can see the data in a different perspective for kind of how it does things. Now onto value proposition. Value is just performance per dollar. It doesn't take into account the way the RGB looks. By the way, speaking of which, if you want to see how the RGB looks for these fans, there are individual videos that go into more detail for each of the fans. So I do recommend checking them out. Anyways, so performance per dollar doesn't give you raw performance data. It just gives you that ratio. So a cheap enough fan, even if it's crap, will still rank well in those graphs. And these are based off of standard retail pricing. They ignore sales or anything like that, special deals, discounts, whatevers. It's just off of standard retail pricing. So the value proposition is subject to change at any time, but it's just standardized for this. So the TLC12C is the very best, followed by the TLS12, TLS12W, Sickle Flow, M25140, Starstone version 2, Astro, TLK12. If you're looking at a little bit bigger cases, the TLS12 series ranks really well. Then followed by the TLC12 Sickle Flow M25140, P14 A-RGB, and Transwarp Reverse. Taking a look at performance through the cooler. Noise normalized, so it's the average of the two scores for the 10 and the 18 decimal marks, and at 100% peak on fan signal. So they line up pretty closely, but there are some variations between the two. But we got the TLC12C, TLS12 series, Sickle Flow, A-RGB, M25140, Starstone version 2 Astro. What else is it? TLK12 is ranked okay, kind of more middle of the ground at 100%. The TLS12s and the TLC12, Sickle Flow, M25140, Starstone, everything else, they start to get a little bit more middle ground. So that gets you that perspective. And that brings us to not really the raw data, but the raw ranking information. So starting off here on the left side at the top, we have the best overall, going from best to worst, top down. And this would be if you're going to buy one fan to do it all inside your computer case, regardless of kind of anything else. So it would be the Loop FT-P140, followed by the P28, Mobius 120p RGB, TLS12W, M25140, the Mobius's, Toughan 12 A-RGB edition. We got it. All right, then the next graph is noise normalized at the 10 and 18 decibel marks through the cooler. This time best is at the bottom, worst, quote worst, ranked 27th, is at the top, so you need to read it bottom up, where it would be the P28, Loop FT P140, Mobius 120p, Unifan SL140, and the worst being like the NO 12015 XT, and that's a 15mm inch fan. So the fact that it ranked there just kind of shows how good that one was. Then we got the ranking information. Again, best is on the bottom, worst is on the top for 800, 1500, 2000, and 2500 RPM marks. And then 100 is kind of shoved off here to the side on the top right for, again, that same ranking information. Going down to the bottom, you'll see the host name stuff, which is me. 10 decibel and then 18 decibel marks on each side of it with the ranking going from best to worst, top down on each of them. So like the Air Penetrator, Loop FTP 140, Mobius 140p, TLS12W, so on and so forth as you go down. And then for the 800, 2000, 1500, 2000, 2500, best is on the bottom, worst is on the top, and so you read it bottom up for picking out your best fan. I know that this may have had a lot of information, or I may have oversimplified things. If you got questions, I have a Discord page. I'll happily answer anything. You can put it in the chat below. Again, I'm happy to answer questions. If you got suggestions for graphs or other perspectives to maybe look at for that, I'm always open to that stuff to try to make it a little bit more viewer friendly. I always like to show off stuff at the end. It's just my thing. If you want to support this channel because you like the idea of what I'm doing, Patreon, supers, YouTube membership. I know that asking for money to give to a random stranger on the internet is a hard thing to ask for. But just hitting that subscribe button does go a long way in helping get this channel traction and pass the word on to your friends who maybe are looking at building a computer this season. Anyways, thank you very much for making this far in my video. I really do appreciate it. I'm always trying to work on this channel, trying to make it a little bit better, and give you all the best data that I can get. Anyways, thank you very much. Have a great day, and I hope to see you next time here on Computer Tech and More.